Hey yo, welcome to another edition of 43.6, the sports podcast you always wanted. I am Dustin Perry, and I'm joined by James Key. Hello, James.
What it do? Shout out to Jets fans and Jets fans only. Winners Corner right here. Wrestling Corner is gone. Winners Corner now, where we just talk New York Jets all day. The Jets are going to the Super Bowl. The greatest team alive.
Maddie, hello.
Yo, I'm a Jets fan, but like not as obnoxious as this.
You know your towel's upside down, you idiot.
That's okay.
Loser.
That's okay.
All right. Well, this is 43.6. We talk about sports and a whole lot of other things. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for subscribing. This episode is brought to you by Now Your Treasures, but we will talk a bit more about them later. On this episode, we will discuss the Toronto Maple Leafs, Major League Baseball. No, I didn't. I already struck that up from the record. Forget Major League Baseball. We're not talking about that. We're going to talk about the NFL. I have it written down, but I forgot to take it off the list. We're going to talk about the NFL. We're going to talk about our Week 7 picks. We're going to talk about Hockey Canada. And then in the wrestling corner, we're going to talk about AEW because they were in town this week in Toronto, and I have some thoughts. But first, before we do that, we want to talk about our week and what we have done in the past week since we last discussed around these microphones. We will start with you, James.
You really want to start with me? It's been the best week of my life.
Oh boy.
And you know what? I'm going to leave it for the NFL. I found it. Finally found it. No. I'll leave that part for the NFL corner. Dude, I broke my phone again. I mashed. So if you sent me a text message.
Did you shit your pants and then tried to wipe yourself and then with
Dude,
your
if
pants?
I had shit my pants and tried to wipe my phone or wipe my ass with my phone, I would be legitimately cut. Like I would be destroyed. I would have a filleted asshole. That is what would happen. So my phone dropped off my nightstand because it was on the charger, and I stepped on the charging cable and it pulled the phone off the charging stand off the table, and so it cracked the top of the screen, and that was fine. And then so I looked up how much it costs to fix a screen out of warranty. It was $250. And I'm like, I'm not paying $250 to fix this fucking screen. But my contract, or they're not contracts anymore, their payment of the phone terms doesn't run out until July. So I was like, well, I got to fix this. So I ordered a DIY kit for fixing the cracks in your phone screen. So I got all set up. I swear to God, the way I had myself, what?
Linus Tech Tips over here.
Dude, the way I had myself set up, you could probably find me in the back alley of a shop on Kiel. That's what I was doing. I had everything, all my tools. I had my hair dryer set up to loosen the glue on the screen. I had a little I had the thread, the wire, everything. And then I guess somewhere along the way of me, and it started off okay. Everything the front's glass was coming up, but on a Samsung, there's the front glass is actually a screen protector that protects the digitizer and the OLED screen, right? And between the digitizer and the OLED screen, or the screen protector, there's it's like a dark gray film that's actually the screen and the touchpad, right? So when you're repairing this stuff, you have to make sure you go between that and the glass. So I started off fine, and somewhere along the line, I tore into that motherfucker. So it takes the actual visualization of the screen off. So my screen is basically useless, which renders my phone useless, which really sucks when my alarm went off at 5:30 this morning and I couldn't turn it off because I can't swipe this. There's nothing to swipe or see or whatever. So I put it in my fucking drawer and just shoved the drawer closed and put a pile of clothes on it so I could not hear it for a while. So now the phone repair is probably going to cost me $500 and the $50 that I paid for this stupid repair kit. So
at this point, you might as well just buy a new phone.
So that's what I asked the peeps at work today. I said, okay, what would you do? I said, would you pay $500 to repair the screen, or would you just buy yourself out of whatever and get a new phone? They were like, I just get a new phone. I'm like, funny, it's not coming from your bank account. Like, of course you'd
So
spend
I
another
had a-
500 of my dollars.
I had a similar situation where I had dropped my phone and I cracked the screen, and then the screen like started to like bleed down. So like I was ticking time bomb until that screen was gonna be useless. And I just took it to a Samsung like authorized repair place, and they charged me like $200 or whatever, and they fixed it for me, and now my phone works. And that was like a year and a half ago.
So I wonder, because the actual digitizer pad is fine, if they can just replace the front piece for $200. But they said a full screen replacement is $5. So I don't know if I ruined the entire screen or just like something they could reapply. But like, I don't know. There's a place in Mississauga I can go to that's a Samsung drop off, or I can go to like that You Break I Fix or whatever it is. I don't know if
There's one at Sherway. That's where I went.
Yeah, I think that's the one that's in Mississauga that they referenced on the website.
No, I think I know, because I did this. I know exactly what you're talking about. The one in Mississauga is like Mavis and Britannia or something.
Oh, okay.
And then there is one at Sherway as well. So I went to the one at Sherway.
The Samsung store?
The Britannia one was closed or whatever.
You went to the Samsung store in Sherway?
It was Samsung store, yeah.
Okay. So I don't know if I should do that or just take it to like one of these like bootleg, like jabroni places that, you know.
Pacific Mall.
That's where I went the first time, and the guy actually sent me somewhere else because he said it was better off to get my phone fixed like within warranty. But I think he was quoting me at $3. So maybe I will go back to Pacific Mall, because, you know, what I did though is I have to show my driver's license to show that I have an Asian last name, so they can be like, yo, get them hookups.
Yeah.
I get free dim sum with cell phone repair.
I mean, if you want, you could borrow my old phone in the interim.
Well, that's what I was
You
going to
can
say.
borrow
Like,
my
you
wife.
could just use an old phone.
No, wait, I don't have an old phone. I'm using my work phone, which funny enough, I told the people at work, they're like, hey, do you still use your work phone? I'm like, I've literally never turned it on. It collects dust in my drawer. So they were like, okay, well, if you don't use it, just bring it back and write us an email saying you don't need your plan or whatever. I was like, yeah, I'll get to it. That was like 3 weeks ago. And so I broke my phone. Luckily, I had that work phone sitting in the drawer. So now I'm rocking like an iPhone like X or something. I don't even know.
I have an
Sorry to hear that.
XR, a spare XR for you to use if you feel like.
Is that the one that JP almost like died with?
No, because that one, like, it was an old iPhone 7. And the funny thing is like, so he wanted to trade his in before EB slashed the trade-in value of his phone. Like, because they were having a thing where if you trade in this phone or newer, we'll give you X amount of credit. So he asked if I had a spare phone to borrow, so that he could trade it in and not lose the money. Because he's like, when the new iPhone comes, they're gonna decrease the trade-in value. So I was like, all right, cool. Gave him this iPhone 7. Didn't realize that the battery life was maybe 20 minutes after a full charge to use.
You think that though? When we went to the TFC game, his phone was on 1% when we got there, and it lasted until he got home. 1%.
Yeah. So the funny thing is he freaks out and then gets his new phone and he's all happy and stuff. Goes to like another EB and they were like, no, the trading value's still the same. So he went through all that shit and he didn't have to.
How many generations back is an XR?
Well, it's essentially so it's XR 11, 12, 13, and they're on 14 now.
So it's pretty old, eh?
It's like, well, I mean, the sad thing is we're having this discussion. We all have computers right in front of us.
Oh, I'm thinking like maybe I could just borrow that phone until July.
Yeah, I don't care. Just let me get rid of the dick pics. So it's the 12th generation. It came out. Oh, are we recording?
Yes. The show is just now negotiating me borrowing your phone.
It came out 2018, so that's 4 years old.
I mean, I think I could last till fucking July.
I mean, you could probably like just call and just do an early upgrade.
No, that's what's going to cost me $1,000 because I have because the way the cell phone
$1,000,
dude, because the way the cell phones plans work, it's bring it back. So if I don't bring it back in good shape, which it's not in fucking good shape, it has no screen, right? They charge you the balance of that plus the balance of your phone payment plus like some other fucked up deposit. So it was like $600 for the bring it back, not doing that, $400 for the balance of the payment, like, and an early out fee of like $120 because it's like up to a maximum of 3 months or something. I don't even know, but it came out to like you got to pay $1,000. I'm like, you fucking kidding me? No. It's more expensive now than when they used to cancel a contract. And they took away contracts because the cancellation penalty was ridiculous. And somehow these cell phone companies have figured out a way to make it more expensive than when contract, like I'm going to campaign, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to campaign to bring back cell phone contracts. That's what I'm going to do because we were way better off. We were way better off.
Hold on, do you remember back in the day trying to like argue on the phone with someone? And for me, it was in university, so I'd sit in.
Oh, dude,
like,
you were the king.
Library.
This guy was the king. If you needed something done with retention or customer service, you put this guy on the horn, for sure.
How many BlackBerries did I get in a year?
Like 4. This guy was the best. The best. The negotiator.
You know why? I had endurance.
100%. Put this guy in front of hostage terrorist situations. He gets them all out. No, the guy offs himself. He doesn't even matter. This guy gets it done for sure.
So yeah, because what happened is like I wanted a new phone. I wanted a new BlackBerry Pearl. That's when the BlackBerry Pearl was like the really cool candy bar phone. You remember that thing?
There was never a time where the BlackBerry Pearl was cool.
What are you talking
it was
about?
cool because you get the pink, you could get the red, you could get the navy blue or the black.
Sir, you
I'm going
obviously
to throw this out there right now. Like, I'm pretty sure the Pearl was for women and the Curve was for dudes.
You obviously didn't go to York University.
Yeah. No, it was the Pearl was the end of high school phone. The Curve or the Curve or the Bold was the university phone. The full keyboard, because that's when you were like getting like the first intro to email on your phone, and you would try and do university emails on your phone and shit like that. But like, I remember I got Jim, I got our mom, and then another buddy of ours, all within the span of like a month and a half, all brand new, like just released BlackBerry phones.
But they were Pearls.
No, mine and my mom's was a Pearl. Jim's was a Curve, and our buddy's was a Curve.
The Curve was where it was at. I loved that phone.
Yeah, okay. I just
like the
love
Bold.
BBM.
I like the Bold with the leather back.
Yes.
Remember that?
I want to buy one. I want to buy a BlackBerry Bold for nostalgic sake.
Actually, as I've been looking at decorating an apartment, have you ever heard of Grid Studios?
I'm going to Google it now.
No.
Grid Studios takes like old technology, and in this case, I'm pretty sure they have BlackBerries. They might even have a BlackBerry Bold, and they'll break it apart into like all its like.
Oh yeah, just like in a frame. Yeah,
and they put it in like a shadow box frame and stuff. It's really cool. I'm going to get one that has like a Game Boy Color.
Do the Pikachu one, the Game Boy Color with the. Yeah, I'm looking at it now.
With Pikachu poking out. Yeah, that's 100% the one I want. I'm just still undecided of whether I want the purple one or the atomic purple one. Now, atomic purple, of course, yeah, atomic purple was always the best in everything Nintendo ever did, and I'm still baffled to this day that Nintendo hasn't made atomic purple Joy-Cons. It's like, what are you guys doing? Get off your ass.
That's actually a good point.
They made Gengar Joy-Cons.
There's Gengar Joy-Cons.
I've shown this on camera before, but like I have my old Game Boy sitting here, and I wish they had the one that I had when I was a kid, which is the green one. Like the
lime green was sick. That was the first pocket that I saw, and I really liked that.
What was the official color of yours?
Mine?
Yeah.
The atomic purple, because it was the see-through with like the bluish purple.
Yeah, that was
literally
sick.
what we were just talking about.
Yeah, no, purple. I didn't know because I didn't know it was just the purple or the see-through purple.
Oh, okay.
No, I had the see-through purple.
Yeah, that one's awesome.
I remember like that was the game before, like post MSN Messenger, pre iPhone, it was BBM. Like that's what you'd be like, if you wouldn't ask a girl or a guy, depending on your preference or whatever, you wouldn't ask them for their number, you would ask them for their BBM. I remember I got so many BBMs in university. I would maybe get like 3 numbers. And they'd be like, "Oh, you don't want my number?" I was like, "No, I don't want to call you."
Dude, it went ICQ, MSN Messenger, BBM, then I would say WhatsApp, then Facebook Messenger, and now it's just whatever.
Yo, I
Well,
can't keep up. Too many
you're
conversations between 5 apps.
we are in our 30s, so like there's going to be a generational gap here, so like kids now would have more information on this, but like at some point Snapchat was a thing. Like you'd ask a girl for her snap instead of
Go-
like her
go
I
phone.
with your
think people
Snap.
still do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and now is Instagram, I think. I could be wrong. I think all the kids are using
Yeah.
Instagram now for that. That you go up to a girl and like, yo, what's your Insta? And you would follow them and whatever. It's funny because I see a lot of TikToks where like girls are complaining where like, ew, I'm not giving guys my snap. What are you, like 20? It's like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. Okay, time out. Let's take a pause. Speaking for myself, and I like to think I'm speaking for most cisgender heterosexual men. None of us wanted Snapchat. Okay? None of us wanted this stupid thing. But it was all y'all who were using it, and it was the best way to contact you. So we had to learn it and start asking for it. And now
No.
And now they
Never
all
did.
bailed on it.
I'm just saying they built the boat and we all jumped on the boat and then they bailed and they're like, why y'all still on that boat? It's like, well, I didn't know like we have to get off. I didn't know like there was a stop that I missed.
Where's the notification? Where's the light that says ding? This is your stop.
Right? Someone needs to like keep me on track with all this
That's
thing.
funny.
Anyways,
Okay,
I
so-
just think it's funny when that comes up.
The Snapchat thing is funny because I have a buddy. I've referenced him a couple times. Brennan on this phone. He's like, "Yo, look at my Snapchat streak." I wanted to smack the shit out of him. He was so impressed with his like 762-day Snapchat streak. I was like, "You want to see a streak, man? Go to a nudie booth and let the shit sit there and dry. Because trying to clean that shit off leaves streaks." That's an old Kevin Smith reference. but-
Wow, that was a walk for that one.
I just watched Clerks 3, movie. That was
Oh, I do want to see that. How is that movie?
it's
very good.
okay. It's not what you think it is, but it is good. Like you have to look at it in the mindset of he's grown as, as a storyteller and a message teller. And you have to look at this as like a love letter to where he started and where he's come.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So
And by he you mean Kevin Smith, I see.
yes.
Yeah.
Um,
him and it's him and his dad. There's a lot of his dad in the film, and you have to dig to find it. But Don, like I can without giving away the film, Dante represents his dad, and Jeff Anderson represents himself.
yeah.
Jeff Anderson being Randall.
Yeah.
Randall. Handle. Yeah, no, it was good. And then, but yeah, I guess transitioning to my week or weekend or whatever. I have made a concerted effort, and this isn't just because I was just there, but this is also like with an impending child who's gonna be, what would we call it, Jim? Would it be like quad racial?
I don't know.
My kid? Yeah. My
Racially
kid's gonna have
ambiguous.
what?
Racially ambiguous.
Yeah, racially ambiguous. Korean, Hungarian, Irish, Chinese, and some other shit in there. Anyway, and so just being very aware that my wife's first language is Korean, although you would never know, no accent or no nothing and shit like that. And her family and all her, like really, really close friends all going to speak Korean to our future daughter. That I was like, you know what? I should make a concerted effort considering we're going to go back fairly often. And the kid's going to speak this, and her family, I should make an effort to try and communicate better with her parents to learn Korean. So I've started to learn Korean. And the crazy thing is, and I learned the alphabet and the pronunciation and like basic words over the weekend. And like I grinded it out. And I was reading, what's the quickest way to learn Korean? What is a realistic timeline to learn and become, kind of sufficient where you could go to the country and you'd be fine, ordering directions and just basic like life need things. And they were saying, roughly if you go at like a half an hour a day pace, you're looking at about 6 months to get to that point. I've been using, and this is like they listed all the apps you can use that they've used to kind of calculate this number, and Duolingo was one of them. I figured why not? It's on your phone, it's cross, PC and all your, your devices. So if I want to use my iPad, PC, whatever. I've tracked my time. In 5 days, I've done 19 hours. of learning
Dude,
Korean.
you're gonna be your own Frank Costanza to your own Elaine. That's what you're gonna be, because it's absolutely necessary you learn this language, especially if your kid's gonna learn it and your wife knows it and all her friends and family. Dude, you can't be caught in the Elaine situation around these people.
No.
They're gonna shit talk you, and you're not gonna know fuck all about what they're saying. So you have to learn so you can Frank Costanza yourself and protect yourself against anytime that they might shit talk.
Yeah, exactly. So I learned this, and also too because and I think it's only fair, and I know my wife always says, well, they're here, they should try and make a better effort to speak English to you. It's like they understand English, it's just they're not comfortable speaking English in regard to her parents. I said, yeah, but at the same time, it's like, why not I make the better effort to learn that language, considering, it's not like they're going to speak English to our daughter when they're there and things like that. And as well as, it's important for me that our kid maintains as much of her background culture, both, my side and the wife's side as well, that, why not? And so my goal is to just speak better Korean than her cousin by the time like we go back to Korea. Cause that was rough struggling. Like the dude was born into it. He wasn't made by it. He was born into it. And yeah, and so my wife laughed. She's like, "No, you'll be there." She already is surprised how quickly I've moved along with it. So yeah, maybe we'll have a Korean corner and I'll do like an education background on this. Oh, and as an inside joke, hold on, guys. I've upgraded my setup. I got a ring light.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
See, look at this. Now it's a nicer glow.
Is it an actual ring light, or is it just your monitor
ring
again?
light.
No, it's a fucking monitor that I just Googled gold and yellow color on the screen.
It works though, I'll tell you.
It does, right? Like all these fucks who go and spend $300 on a light ring or whatever. Just use your monitor. Just go get a 165 Hz 1440p monitor.
Oh yeah, just go get a $500 monitor instead of a $30 ring light on Amazon.
Or IKEA, yeah.
No. Anyway, Dustin, your week.
I was at Greektown Wrestling this past weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday in Toronto and Sunday in London. A lot of fun. I love it's fun because I get to do commentary there, and that's like a different thing for me. And I always called myself like the Jim Ross of commentary for Smash Wrestling, where like I constantly got replaced even though I did nothing wrong. It was like, oh, Dustin the commentary. Okay, great. Let's go try Scott Hunter guy out. I'm like, okay, cool. And then I would be back in there at some.
Smash?
I did originally, like way in the beginning.
I just remember you as a ring announcer.
I did both.
And you had some shiny
it's
shoes,
because nobody could ring announce as good as you.
Aw.
And that's what I've been told. It's like, well, ring announcing is your strength, so you should. I'm like, yeah, but like, it's not
what I wanted.
It's not a challenge anymore, and it's not what I want to do. So I get it, and you need someone who can do it. But like, finding someone who can do commentary is significantly more difficult to find than someone who can be a ring announcer. It's like, you know what I mean? Like, one is a significantly more difficult skill than the other, because wrestling commentary
depends, though,
a different thing altogether.
I would argue that a bad ring announcer can ruin the entire show.
Yeah.
No, I mean, a bad commentator will ruin the show too, but like one ruins the live show and one will ruin the
right. But the live show has to exist above all, right? And I'm not saying this because I'm saying shut up, Dustin, get in the ring and announce. Like, that's not my job anymore. But if you as the ring announcer don't set the tone for everybody in there, and you don't like, your energy gets people hyped. Like, your main event calls are legendary, and people know that it's time because the way you do it and how good. And if that energy's not there, then the whole show comes across shit, even for the commentary, right? So I would argue that the ring announcers is like, they're both important, but I think there's more at stake if the ring announcer is garbage, right? Like, if the ring announcer is bad, the whole show could be off. Like it's not bad, but it's going to be off. Like it's going to be like the wavelengths aren't aligning, you know? Like,
No, I'm with you. I understand it's off. I'm half watching wrestling while I'm talking. And I just saw a wrestler I don't like, so I got annoyed. Anyways, I understand what you're saying, and I appreciate what you're trying to say in reference to me. But like, I don't think it's that difficult to find someone who's going to do a fine job.
are you referencing my times ring announcing?
I think you did a fine job.
Oh, thank you.
Sure.
A little over fine, maybe? No?
You know what though? When it comes to shit like that though, you know how having someone just there, like a body in place to say, you know what, someone they can do the job, they're fine. I find that's one of those things where you can't have just fine though.
Yeah.
You know, if you really want fan engagement beyond just what the show is, because of the downtime, guys, you know, in between matches and things like that, or kind of setting up a match, that if you don't have someone that can deliver that hype, I mean, you're already starting behind the eight ball coming in for a match. And especially because it can really hype guys up coming into the ring too, and not just the fans, but obviously the performers as well.
I would say that's a good point, because I would say in our time at Smash, when we decided to do a warm up, the energy became much different. Like the beginning of the show, up until they did TV, and we had to do awkward TV intros that made no fucking sense. So up until that point, like the warm ups like started the crowd off on the right foot, because you were allowed to dictate to them like what you like, how you wanted the night to go, right? And they listened to you because at that moment you're the authority, right? Like you are the company. When you and I stand in the ring, we riff back and forth. They're engaged, their energy's up, they're feeding back into what we're doing, which is like priming an engine, right? So that when the first guy gets out there, it's not necessarily a dead reaction. If there's a dead reaction, we can take that away, right? Like we can work that out of them. You know what I mean? So I think there's some truth to what he's saying in that, and I think that's why we did it. Because like I'd ask you this honestly, when we did warm up before TV, because I think what happens with the TV warm up is you blow your wad trying to look hype for TV, and then people are tired for the first match. They're like, oh fuck, we just cheered for 30 seconds while nothing happened and the camera just banned the crowd, right? But how many times before that would you say the crowd ever started dead?
I don't know if they ever really started dead, to be honest, even after TV. I think the second half was dead, like the second time we did the TV intro. I think that hurt.
Yeah.
Because it was never as hot as the first one. And right after intermission, there's always like 30% of the people still like getting a beer in the washroom or something.
Yeah,
right?
That's true.
So doing that intro twice, I think, was detrimental for sure.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, I enjoy doing commentary. Nug and I are starting to gain some steam together as like build a rapport.
And he's great. He's awesome.
He is. And Bill Alfonso is awesome too. Like that guy was just so happy to be there and like just had nothing but great things to say to everybody. It's also it's funny to me like seeing a guy that you have watched for most of your life. And like his signature thing was like calling Rob Van Dam and like, or everyone, daddy.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to me, daddy. I'm gonna like. So when he called
And
me
the whistle.
daddy, I'm like, that's just really weird.
Yeah. Did he blow the whistle at
Whatever,
you?
you enjoyed it.
Oh, I
blow-
did enjoy it. Like I'm just saying, like, it's weird in the sense of like, that's an interaction I never thought I'd have in my life. Of
Did he
like
blow the
Bill
whistle?
Alfonso calling me daddy. You know what I mean?
Did he blow the whistle at you?
Oh man, the whistle thing was so cool too. Like there was a moment in the Toronto show where Wardlow was doing his power bombs to everybody, and Bill Alfonso is blowing his whistle like it's Rob Van Dam like doing his offense, right? So it was this weird dynamic of something you're used to seeing now, but mashing it up with something that you remember happening as a kid or when you grew up watching wrestling. It's
Worlds
this
are
weird
colliding.
mashup that you never thought would exist, and it's something you really only get on the independent scene where you get to see Wardlow and Bill Alfonso interact with each other, right?
Yeah, that's kind of cool. That is cool.
Know what else is cool? Our sponsor, Now Your Treasures. This episode is brought to you by Now Your Treasures. Now Your Treasures are purveyors of licensed fine art prints for movies, comics, TV, and video games. Sourced from galleries in the US and UK, which include artists from all over the world. Visit Now Your Treasures on Instagram and send a DM 43.6 to receive 43.6% off any order. All orders are shipped with tracking and complimentary insurance. View the entire ever-expanding inventory at nowyourtreasures.ca or .com, nowyourtreasures.ca or .com, and make sure you go to Now Your Treasures on Instagram. Send them a DM 43.6 to receive 43% off any order. One day I will get that right.
I don't even know. But
the way the copy is written is view the entire ever-expanding inventory. But I always muffle that because there's like 3 E words in it.
I would say tough alliteration. That's difficult. But it's okay. You can power through it.
He does enjoy your ad reads, though.
I saw that on his Instagram story last week that he appreciated, even though I probably fumbled that one too. But he does appreciate the fact that we do it live.
It's all your time doing sponsor reads as a ring announcer.
Oh, not just that, but like, I mean, I did spend some time in broadcasting. Like, I know what I'm doing.
But like, this was like outside of that. Like,
messaging
me saying, you know what, I'd like to say that this is just, you know, us tooting our own horn and shit like that. And every time I gotta say this too, a little side tangent. Every time Dustin takes a sip of that fucking cup, he looks at it like it's something different or new every time. It's like, dude, it doesn't change. Stop.
No, what happens is because it's one of these stupid like dragon fruit things. So every time I take a sip, there's like a chunk of dragon fruit, and I have to like suck it down.
Get no fruit.
Yeah,
no, but it's no good. Fruit.
No, get no. Do you know how bad that frozen fruit that just sits at Starbucks in those cups all day? It's disgusting.
You can ask for no inclusions.
Yeah, that's what I do. I get a Trenta strawberry fresher, light lemonade, no inclusions.
Anyway, I know, I'm aware of your ridiculous order.
I know, it's fantastic. But yeah, no, like I'm not just trying to toot our own horn, but he genuinely, and this being our sponsor and the owner of the company of our sponsor, genuinely enjoys listening to our podcast. Because he said it's not fluff. We don't try to be something we're not. And we just are dudes who enjoy sports and like, you know our shit about sports, but don't come at it of like we're trying too hard to be ultra produced and ultra, I guess.
Thanks, man.
What you would, yeah. So he's a big fan.
As a producer on the show, thank you. Not ultra produced. I appreciate that.
So wait,
yeah, exactly.
No, do you know what I mean though? In terms of, we don't have, where a lot of podcasts will have a script and, they're very rigid with sticking to their timelines and stuff. He's like, you guys just feel organic.
Yeah, we're fucking garbage. We're fucking garbage sticking to anything.
You know who doesn't try very hard either?
Oof.
Russel Wilson?
No.
I mean, I know the segment could have gone a lot of different ways, but I was actually...
Lob that one up, eh?
I was actually talking about the Toronto Maple Leafs who got their ass handed to them by the Arizona Coyotes the other day. And I thought an interesting stat was the one that the Coyotes tweeted out right after the game, where it said the streak is still alive.
Yeah.
And the streak was like, since 2002, they've at least earned a point in Toronto.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
so they're the Leafs version of the Rays. Like, even when the Rays were really bad and the Jays were kind of decent, the Rays would pump them.
No, there's
well, the worst part about the Jays and Rays is that it almost seems exclusively to be in Tampa. So every time they go there, and also baseball is like 3-game series, right? So like every time they go to Tampa, they always end up losing at least 2 of 3. So it's very frustrating here. But in the case of Arizona, the worst part has to be the fact that they're not an NHL team, right? Like they don't have an NHL building. Their roster is questionable at best.
I didn't even know they were fucking touring instead of playing. Like they're not even just playing at that arena. They're going on
roadies.
They're going on they're basically like the Benji of NHL. They're just
they're vagabonds. They are they're the Blue Jays when COVID happened and they weren't allowed to come home to Canada.
They're just playing I saw they were playing in like Tulsa or something, or like they
Idaho. Played in Idaho.
Yeah.
Or Iowa.
But dude, it's
is
not
this heaven?
It's not. No, it's Iowa. The problem with the Leafs and the Coyotes, and I don't know if it's because since 2003 or just in recent memory, and this is why they have struggled against them, and it's the reason they struggled against them last night. The Coyotes may not have your typical NHL team at all, right? But what they have are guys that work. And they work either trying to earn NHL jobs or trying to be on a team and earn their keep. Maybe it's there, maybe it's elsewhere, right? And those are the guys that you like. Look at the makeup of the Coyotes: Josh Brown, right? Lawson Krause, Liam O'Brien, Jay McBain. Dude, these are men. Like these are
Nick Ritchie.
Of course,
These are dudes. The revenge goal. These are dudes who are big boys and relatively take no shit. What's scary about it is, guess what, boys? Those are the types of players the Leafs are going to face in the playoffs. And
go ahead.
No, I'm just saying. And the type of game the Coyotes played. Listen, I'm not saying the Coyotes are making the playoffs, but that type of game they played is the type of game the Leafs are going to face in the playoffs against every other team.
I also think I know this is kind of an easy thing to fall back on, but it is only game 4.
No, it's been only game 4 for the last decade. It's been only the 4th game of the season for the last decade. The problem is,
and we said that last year, and look, they broke the record for points in a season.
That's fine. They were out in the first round again.
No, but then people can't this is what drives me nuts. People can't have their cake and eat it too. You don't get to complain about the season and then all of a sudden end your argument, but you're like, you know what, I don't give a shit. It all only matters in playoffs. Either you care about the season and you can bitch about it, or you don't care about the season and you're just waiting to playoffs.
Right, but that's not the argument that's being made. The argument is the style of game that they cannot play is the game that's going to be played in the playoffs. They can't do it.
I just think that there were stretches of last night's game that, yes, Arizona played well, but that's not. It's easy to look at it and say, oh, they did this and they did that with the score, but that's not inherently indicative of how the game was actually played. The real concerning thing for me overall these 4 games is that the shots are down like drastically. Usually the Leafs would average 33, 34 shots against a game. It's like 23. So what does that tell you?
They're getting outmanned. They're getting out. They're being spaced out
away from the net. Their goalies aren't stopping a puck when they should.
No, they're moving out away from the net. They're not getting enough shots on net because they're being boxed out.
Each game I can point out two goals in every game that should not have happened to a professional goalie.
Oh no, that's fine, but they're still not even doing enough on their end from an off. Like, this is supposed to be an offensively elite team. I'm not seeing that.
Right, but okay, then last season when this was the same thing, and then they went through that offensive drought at the start of the season, people were like, "Oh, they're supposed to be this high-powered offense," and they ended up finishing first in the league on offense.
So you think this team has the makeup to be a Stanley Cup winning team as it's currently constructed? That's not what I'm saying. Right, but do you think they have the elements needed?
I think they have elements that are different this year. I think that overall the skaters on the ice aren't necessarily the issue. I think the big issue, like I said, as of this moment, is goaltending. And at the same time, it's early, so guys want to settle in, especially guys like Samsonov coming to a new team, Matt Murray, who's Mr. Glass from, fucking M. Night Shyamalan lore. But my concern is that it's also at what point, and again, it's not at what point because we've all kind of laid the blame here, but this is a massive issue of accountability on the management as well.
But that's what we're saying. They don't have the management hasn't put the pieces in place. Keefe alluded to it in his postgame. They have elite players. They didn't play elite. If the elite players don't show up on this team, they are fucked.
Okay, but are you going to come back to this fucking same statement though when it's the end of the season and Austin Matthews is pot 67? You're going to be like, yeah, but that game, those first 4 games of the season.
No, that's fine. If he shows up, that's fantastic. The problem is there's
It's not
too
if.
much.
He's never not shown up in the season.
But there's too much stock on the elite talent. They can't win more than one way. This team only has one way to win, and that's the problem. Every team that has won a Stanley Cup for all the times has multiple ways to win games. This team can't do that.
I just think this argument has no weight until you're at least 25 games into the season.
Right, but we've been 25 games in the season for a decade, and so it's just different this year because why?
No, but
okay, hold on. Let me throw this at you. If you look at the Maple Leaf schedule in October, they started the season back to back at Montreal and then home against Washington.
4 games in 6 nights.
Exactly. And then they came home and played Ottawa. They won that one. And then they were home against the Coyotes, and unexcusable loss. Like, they should have pumped the Coyotes. And James, I know what you're trying to get at. And I agree with you that there's a problem here. I get that they had a tough schedule, and they're going to continue to have a tough schedule throughout October. And I'll get to that in a moment. But you need to pump these teams. Like, enough is enough. I don't want to hear it anymore. This, like, oh, we weren't ready to show up. Like, especially in the playoffs where they're like, oh, we weren't ready to start the game on time. Like, that can't be a narrative anymore. Like, this needs to stop. And I don't know
elite?
what I don't know what needs to change. And I understand that, like, is it a coaching thing? Is it a personnel thing? I don't know, because they have changed so much about this team all through the years. There's different players, there's different coaches, there's different management. They have changed everything except the goal song. Change that goddamn goal song. I don't know what you change. I really don't get it.
Are you elite or are you not elite? If you're elite, you walk through these teams. That's like, and you can say, well, every team has a bad. It's 2003. This fucking team has come into this arena since 2003 and gotten a point. Because the team since 2003 has not been a team that can step on shitty teams. They go to sleep. And if the elite players go to sleep, this team can't win. It's been proven.
By that argument, though, then any decent team in your eyes that loses to a Montreal or to an Arizona then should not be a decent team. And every team has lost to those teams at any given time. Arizona went on a 12-game win streak last year and pumped so many good teams, and then no one made that argument except for the Leafs.
Right, but we lose always against these bad, and it's always the same way. The Leafs get outworked. It happens all the time. It's the same. I'm not the only one making this commentary. This isn't just, oh, look at James going on, the earth is flat. That's not what it is. Everybody sees the same issues. They're fucking soft. There's no response. If they get down or if they're being outworked, they have zero pushback.
I mean, that's kind of a failed argument, considering last night that, you're like, oh, they go down and they have no pushback, and they tied it up with, in the span of a minute and a half.
TJ Brody is the only one willing to do anything in front of the net to protect the goaltender, and which is, to your point, they don't have a lot of goaltending. In fact, they're very short on goaltending, and they don't even have enough contracts to bring in another goaltender if they need to. And he's the only, all 5'4" of TJ Brody is out there busting his ass.
No, if you want to have a believable argument, don't go hyperbolic with, stupid 5'4" like comments like that.
Dude, compared to Justin Hall or anybody else on that team,
everyone knows Hall's useless.
Right.
I think what James is trying to say that he has a disadvantage in size and he is not playing that way.
But the rest, you got Pierre Engvall, who's shredded as fuck, useless, right? It's just it's when does it stop? When does the work ethic come? Matthews, fantastic. I don't give a fuck that guy's not scoring 50 goals because he's working, right? But it seems like nobody else on this team like Morgan Riley. Well, holy shit!
I would argue that the issue then isn't. The argument you're making isn't with the players that you're essentially making the argument about. It's not Matthews, it's not Nylander, it's not Tavares. They've all worked so far this season. They've all worked. Like, yes, right. They may not have gotten the points. Right, okay. And it's not Marner. It's your tertiary pieces, And the sad thing is that it's glaring when it's honestly out of the whole thing, it's 3 or 4 players out of the 20 on the ice that are causing the problem. And it's glaring gaps. It's stupid giveaways, stupid decisions by Hull, by Engvall. It's not getting a save on that should be a routine save from the top of the circle from a second-year player.
Yeah, it's Jake Muzzin just not being Jake Muzzin. Like, Jake Muzzin 10 years ago would have been perfect for this team. And I'm sorry, but I think the ship has sailed on Jake Muzzin. It's not enough. And the reason I'm so amped up about this is because it's been the same solution for so long. And I'm gonna say, I'm not asking for a team full of Brett Ritchies. What I'm asking for is a response. I'm asking for a team.
I think you mean Nick.
No, Brett.
Yeah, I was like, okay, sure, whatever.
Brett, because Brett's the tougher of the two. He's the one who pounds people in the salt with his fists. But like, it's not like nobody's asking for fighters. We're asking for guys who will commit and sacrifice and do the things that winners do. There's a significant portion of this team that will not do the things that winners do. And like, I hate to, like, Morgan Riley, gifted as fuck offensively, brain dead in terms of sacrificing himself and being an all-around, like, he's just not an all-around defenseman. And if that's not who he is, that's fine. But you have to find that through the rest of the defensive lineup, and they don't. The bottom six, listen, everyone was stoked. I was stoked about Comp, Austin Reese, and Abe Kubel, but hey, they're playing identical almost to the third line. So like, the team just doesn't have enough elements of what winning hockey teams have. All they have is the high-end skill, and then everything else is gone. And if the high-end skill, and what I was saying is, you're right, if the high-end skill doesn't show up, because they're not going to show up for 82 games plus. They're not. It's impossible to have that be a thing. So when that doesn't happen, who shows up?
I just hate the argument when it's 4 games in, when we're all very much on the same page that no one gives a shit what they do in the season.
All right, so how about this? I agree with Maddie in a sense that we are 4 games in. So let's pump the brakes a bit on freaking out about the team, because I understand this is a game they should have won, and they should not have lost to Montreal either. Like, looking at the schedule, they should not have lost to Montreal or Arizona.
No, and I'm in agreement. Yes, they should be stepping on these teams 100%. And there are issues in both games, but the issues aren't wholly in terms of what you're frustrated about. The frustration comes from the history, not from what is occurring in the games.
Right.
Yeah, but no,
especially
but what occurred
the newer
in that
guys
game
that have not the newer guys should not be graded the same way as everyone who's here last year. So your bottom 6, with the exception of Kampf, is like all new guys, right?
Right, for sure. But at the end of the day,
I guess Engvall, but
the response is the response is the response. If the response isn't there, then it's not there. And listen,
well, let's see how they respond against the Stars.
I think
who are undefeated.
And this is what I'm saying though. I guess maybe as a fan and as someone who's constantly heard, we can't talk about the past. It's a new year. We can't do. It's a new thing. It's only this. Like, at some point.
Yes, it's frustrating. But like I said, is what I'm trying to say is the frustrations you have with this team aren't due to the 4 games that have been played so far. Your frustration is due to the last season and the way that it ended in the playoffs. That's not been what the issue has been so far in these games.
Well, no, actually, I think it has. Like, I think the issue in last night's game and the game of Montreal and even to an extent in Ottawa, were exactly the issues. Is that they have a problem.
The only leg you would have is against Ottawa, yes. But I can point out to it wasn't a work ethic. It wasn't a issue of, being out physically played in against Arizona and Montreal. Absolutely not.
Arizona was 100% that.
I don't think they're out. I don't. No. I agree with Maddie. I don't think they were necessarily outplayed against the Coyotes. I think they just matched the Coyotes' play, and the Coyotes are bad, and the Leafs are just pedestrian out there. Like, they didn't have the fire to win that game. Right. I don't know if it's overly confident, and they thought, we can beat these guys no problem, 2-0, and let's just take it easy out there. That's how it felt to me. It looked like they weren't.
They're not
like
workers.
There's no sense of urgency. There's no like feeling or fire in them to want to score goals. Like it was just, let's go out there and have fun.
They're not workers, and that's the thing. Like there are very little workers on that roster, and that's the problem. And it's been a problem.
So looking forward in October, it's going to get worse.
Yes.
So whatever you are, so I see where you're going with this, James, is that we're 4 games in, and Maddie, to your point, let's not freak out about 4 games. There's a lot more hockey to play, and this team has a lot more to prove. Whatever they're going to prove, they have time to prove it.
This is the equivalent of losing, I guess, your first 3 series of a baseball season, and then teams are like, fucking pack it in.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
no, it's the equivalent of us at the beginning of the season going, this bullpen is going to be the end of us. And then at the end of the season, we were like, this fucking bullpen is the end of us.
Was the end of us. Yeah.
I'm very aware how this team is constituted now as a whole. And I don't just mean tertiary pieces, is not going to be the same at the trade deadline. I'm very aware of that.
Oh, no, it can't be.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to win.
With their cap situation and their contract situation, it can't be.
I'm in agreement that there's problems with this team. I'm not in agreement that it is everything that you say it is. I think, like I said, a lot of your frustration comes with how the end of last season was and going into this season. Do I think that there's holes and gaps to be filled? Absolutely. Do I think guys don't deserve to be here? Absolutely. And as a whole, I think that the only 2 guys that realistically should be shipped out of here and either give it to young guys who are hungry and want to play, or go get pieces that more fill what you need. But there is no place currently on this team for Justin Hull and Pierre Engvall.
Dude,
and
I can name you Gino Malgin. Great skill. There's enough skill on his team. The fuck out. Pierre Engvall doesn't know what he's doing. The fuck out.
So when you have a team that you're trying to compete for spots and you're giving guys auditions and trials, and you have essentially a 4-game stint to grade guys on in training camp, and you're saying, you know what, you tell these guys the best guy's going to earn it that comes out of training camp. Okay.
Yeah.
Denny Mulligan earned that spot.
Right. But if
Nick Robertson earned that spot. You have useless Pierre Engvall getting paid $2.5 million. Right. That's taking up the spot.
What I'm saying is they have so much of the same dude throughout the lineup. Get different players in camp who bring different elements, right? If you look at the New York Rangers, if the New York Rangers top end skill isn't scoring, number 1, you're correct. They have elite goaltending to fall back on that the Leafs don't have. Number 2, they also have
a Norris defenseman.
Sorry? Right.
And a Norris winning defenseman.
Right. And they have other elements to fall back on in case a game gets out of hand, or they can contain a game. The Leafs can't do that. We know they can't do that.
I mean...
And that's the problem. And you know what? And if you solve it at the trade deadline, guess what? It's too late. It's too late sometimes.
I mean, okay, fine. You want to say the trade deadline's too late? Then you freaking out 4 games in is too early.
Okay, so consider this. The Dallas Stars are coming to town on Thursday. If you look at the Stars roster, I'll give you a second. Pull up the Dallas Stars roster if you haven't already. And when Dallas takes on Toronto at 7:00 Eastern Time at the Scotiabank Arena, who's going to score the first goal of that game for the Dallas Stars? Obviously, the Dallas Stars are going to score first.
Obviously,
the Dallas Stars are going to win that game.
Mason Marchment is scoring.
Yes.
Mason Marchment is
100%.
scoring.
It's going to be Mason Marchment.
He's going to have a hat trick.
Marchment's going to score a hat trick in this game.
Did you see the goal he scored the other night?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he dusted 3 guys.
But that's what I mean. And I know these guys are sometimes unicorns. And I know we had this guy. We gave him up.
No, not just that. It's like it's the same argument you made for baseball. Sometimes guys don't pan out. You can't hold on to prospects in the same way. Like
baseball's way different. Baseball's way different in the prospect regard. Legit 0%.
Just because there's a lot more of them.
Yeah, it's just that like there's a bigger pool to pull from. But at the same time, if you look at historical guys drafted in the NHL, maybe 5% actually turn out to be something very good.
I'll tell you, Mason Marchment's going to score, and Yanni Hakanpää is going to destroy somebody.
No.
And, oh, yeah, for sure. That guy is going to absolutely obliterate somebody on this team. And
you want to lay money on the end of this game?
It's going to be Gino Malgin. Yeah, the Stars are winning.
What's the score?
I'm gonna say
No, watch. Well, hold on. Watch. This asshole is gonna be like 5-1 Dallas.
I was literally gonna say 5-1 Dallas. That was literally the words that are about to come out of my mouth. It was 5-1 Dallas.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna give 2 goals to Mark Schmidt.
I'm gonna say 4-2.
I'll give one to Robertson. And
Jason or Nick, because we know Nick's getting in there.
Oh, Jason. Sorry, I was only looking at the Dallas roster right now. I'll give one to Jason Robertson, 2 to Mason Marchment. Let's give 1 to Pavelski and 1
to Kiravanta.
Sure.
Okay, I'm gonna call 4-2 Leafs. I'm gonna say no. Watch. I'm gonna say Matthews has 1. They go down 2-1, and then so they get 1, go down 2-1, then score 3 straight, and they win.
3 straight. I don't know if this team has the ability to score 3 straight.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Against the Dallas Stars, I mean.
I don't. I say 4-2, and I think the Leafs go down 3-1, and they trade, and then we call it time of death, 10 o'clock at night.
So, okay, either way, it's going to be a tough game against the Dallas Stars. They're one of the best teams in the NHL, and Mason Marchment will score a bunch of goals, I guarantee it, because that's what every former Maple Leaf does when they come into Scotiabank Arena, and we saw it literally last night with Nick Ritchie. But from there, and this is why I'm saying the Leafs October sucks. They are going to Winnipeg.
Oh, the West Coast playing right away.
And then they get a day off and they go right to Vegas. And they're off a couple days, then they're in San Jose. And then they're off a day and they're in Los Angeles. And then the next night they're in Anaheim. They're on a 5-game road trip, all West Coast. I mean, Winnipeg's kind of West Coast. I guess you can. They're Western Conference, we'll say. A 5-game Western Conference swing right here at the end of the month. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Leafs win one more game this month. So, and I'm not like saying they're a bad team. I still think the Maple Leafs make the playoffs, and I still think they're in the conversation of winning the division. They might even be the conversation of winning the President's Trophy. Like, I'm not overly concerned. I'm just saying, temper your expectations for this month. I think it's going to be a very rough month for them. I think they're going to be behind the 8 ball when November starts. But I'm sure at some point, give it December or January, this team's going to go on a run and they're going to erase all these losses and they'll be right at the top of the Eastern Conference. And none of this will matter until they get eliminated in the first round and we're at these microphones and we start dissecting what went wrong.
So before we do transition, I'm willing to lay money on this with you for Thursday's game, Jim.
But not Dustin.
No, because
we will take that offline before we talk about betting. But I will bet you a glass of water that the Maple Leafs will lose that game.
I will bet you a venti strawberry refresher with lemonade with no inclusions.
No, see, it has to have the inclusions, or it's not a deal.
Yeah, that disease is waiting to happen.
Again,
I'm like a borderline germaphobe.
Listen,
I know this.
I understand it sounds like it's talking out of both sides of your mouth. There are just things you want to see to feel confident that there's something different about this team. But up until now...
And I agree, but I'm saying you can't make that assessment within 4 games. I think you need enough track.
And I'm saying... But you can make assessment on those things because the points and what they do in the regular season don't matter. But the behaviors and the little nuances that cause the problems are the behaviors and nuances that cause them problems at the end of the year. So seeing them frequently, regardless, they could have 400 points for the season, but if they're still making the same problems and those are the problems that exist and kill you in the playoffs. And if they can't address them and you see them all the time, you're going in going, well, I know this is going to end because I've just watched it all season. And that's the scary thing.
You know what is a really big problem, though? Is James, and it's Maddie, and it's everyone, for Christ's sake. That no one, okay, none of you, and I'm almost upset about this, that none of you told me about the unlimited video.
Oh, God.
Dude, I found out that was from 2018.
That's what I'm saying. When I saw it earlier this week, I thought it was just Russell Wilson being crazy Russell Wilson. Because I think there's like a definitive line of like, there was Seattle Russell Wilson and now there's crazy Russell Wilson. But like...
He's always been crazy.
Apparently so. Because that video is from 2018, Mr. Unlimited.
Have you not seen that before?
I had never seen
Dude,
that
I
until
never
this.
saw it until I shared it. Never saw
Neither
it.
of you have seen that before.
No.
No.
You're both lying to me. There's no way.
No, I saw it
dead
on Twitter,
serious.
and I was like, you have to see this. I didn't know it was
Okay.
real.
I remember when it first came out, I was watching Overdrive, and they were like, "Can you believe this video for Russell Wilson?" And they were like, "And what?" And like they were talking about saying, he's unlimited. I was like, "What the fuck does that mean?" Like,
Dude, he gave
when I'm
himself an
watching it.
alter ego.
Yeah.
He said,
He's Mr. Unlimited. He's not Mr. Unlimited. He's Mr. Unlimited.
And he said, when anyone asks you, say you're unlimited. What does that even mean, dude?
Who
My
knows,
God.
man?
Like, honestly, like, if someone, actually, it was Dustin who said this, is a
Yeah.
great example of NFL having CTE issues because no one in their right mind says that. But then I will say maybe he's just, had a good day. He popped his wife a couple times in the
Smoke
morning.
some pot.
What?
Maybe smoke some pot.
Well, no, like when this first came out,
Yeah.
because he was in Seattle, so. But like he's just chilling, like I said at the time.
That's a lot of pot.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm pretty sure weed is legal in Seattle, isn't it?
Okay.
Or in Washington State.
I don't follow the American legal system that way, but I didn't know you guys were connoisseurs. But thank you for the education. But I was watching this, like, maybe he's just in a good mood. And he's just vibing. He's in it, and I was like, you know what? It's stupid. It's dumb, and whatever. But I was kind of gonna let it slide. Then the TikToks started to come out, and then the other Instagram posts started to come out, and he is arguably, not even arguably, he is the most cringeworthy dude in sports. 100%.
I've heard he's a weird cat. Like I've heard people saying he's just like he's a nice guy. He's a little
Spacey.
off. Yeah, he's a little bit of a space case.
But can you remember, like, I can remember athletes doing some cringe shit, or I can remember some cringe moments in sports. The NHL had one the other day with the referee like, "Welcome to the NHL season, everyone." Like, and
Couldn't imagine a better place to be than right here, right now.
yeah, like he was about to whip it out for sure, but
Could be like Laris on House of Dragons.
yeah. Oh, buddy,
What about
total
Gary
simp.
Bettman? Caleb McCarr?
Caleb McCarr, your own Norris Trophy defenseman, and you
Caleb?
don't fucking know his name.
Yeah.
What a turkey!
Yeah, that's
An
cringe. But like,
absolute
not as
turkey.
and like, dude, we used to say in high school too. I mean, everyone said it, but we said it because nicknames were a big part of our high school. But like, you don't give yourself a nickname. Like, you don't.
No.
Like, nobody.
Rule number one: you don't give yourself a nickname.
This dude gave
It's
himself
like
an
George
alter
Costanza
ego.
calling himself T-Bone.
Yeah,
Yeah, this guy gave himself an alter ego. You can't.
yeah,
I
not
think
just a
that's-
nickname, like a complete other. The only person that's allowed to do that is Dr. Disrespect. The only person
or
who's allowed to
superhero,
do-
like
Yeah.
Batman. Like, you're not Batman,
but
Mr.
it serves
Unlimited.
a purpose,
What do you
right?
think? Justice League,
But-
Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Mr.
Mr.
Unlimited.
But we've all seen cringe shit in sports, but I don't think there's been a dude who's tried so hard to be cool that just the cringe meter just skyrockets.
The closest comparable I can think of, and it's not even close, would be Chris Jericho. And if you've seen some of his stuff recently, where it seems like, and I get it from his perspective, where I think he's trying to create like something that gets over. So he's throwing shit against the wall, and whatever sticks, maybe he can make money off it. So like Jericho was doing oh god, there's so many of them recently, but like he's calling himself the Ocho now. And before that, he had another nickname for himself. And before that, he had like 4 or 5 different nicknames for himself over the past like 6 months. And I think he's just trying to get something to stick. But every time it just seemed very weird. But I at least appreciate the effort, I suppose. I feel the same way with Russell Wilson though. The Mr. Unlimited thing. And now I don't know if this is a Broncos thing or this is a Wilson thing, but
Let's
Let's ride. Yo, everyone making fun of it is hilarious. Did you see the Mitch Trubisky video?
No,
I don't think I did.
Oh my god. Okay, and again, if I take this out of context or if I'm maybe not being accurate with it, I don't know, but right after that video, I'm scrolling through and I don't know if it was someone who got it or if they were doing this on purpose or if it's like an NFL tagline and it's just everyone's doing it and then they just saw how cringe it was with Russell and they were like, cancel all the videos, fuck it. But there's a video of Trubisky. He's doing his promo video where he's got the screens in the background, similar to Wilson did. And he's standing there and he's, giggling around and, someone's talking. He's like, all right, ready? And he's like, hey, guys, let's ride. And then everyone starts laughing. I don't know if it was like a shot, like joking around.
It was a shot because let's ride is the Broncos tagline.
Like getting on a Bronco and let's all ride together because we're Cowboys.
Yeah. Well, they're Bronco busters, but the Cowboys are the Cowboys. I
mean, sure.
But yeah, but
the Trubisky one was funny. And man, did you see, I saw this the other day and I'm going to pull it up. And
okay, what are you pulling up exactly?
So is that the biggest fleecing in sports? What the Seahawks did to the Broncos? And
did they trade Russell Wilson? I thought he was a free agent signing.
No, they traded him.
It was a trade.
Oh man, it was a trade rape then, wasn't it?
They got
2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, a player that was a recent first-round pick, and like $240 million.
That might be the best fleecing in all professional sports.
I'm trying to find what the full thing was. I saw it the other day, and it was like the full breakdown.
Listen, the only other fleecing that comes close, and we'll touch on that too, is the Jamal Adams to Seattle for all the first rounders the Jets got. Then we'll touch on that though. Okay,
here it is. I got it. So the Broncos got Russell Wilson and a 2022 4th-round pick. The Seahawks get Drew Lock, Shelby Harris, Noah Fant, 2022 first-round pick, 2022
pretty good.
2022 second-round pick, 2022 5th-round pick, 2023 first-round pick, 2023 second-round pick. And with the way that the Broncos are playing, that first-round pick is gonna be like 3rd or 4th.
Let's level set here for a second because, first of all,
I thought you were gonna say let's slow it down. I mean, Wilson just got there. It's early. I was gonna tell you to go fuck yourself.
Well, maybe you could tell yourself to go fuck yourself in the last conversation then. But here's the thing: do any of you feel bad at all for Russell? Like,
no, he brings it on himself.
I know, but like, do you feel like it's just him trying to be like liked and endearing? Like, do you think there's any sort of like altruistic, like, do you know?
I think he's a good dude, but I think he's trying way too hard.
Right, but do you think he's aware of that? Like, do you think someone's like, hey man, like maybe just fucking chill, like maybe just throw the ball, like, or and lay low for a bit and just kind of like protect your brand? Like, is there nobody doing that for him? And then the second piece is, is it just the Broncos offense not clear? Like, is Russell Wilson maybe just not that good of a quarterback? I'm trying to do like an
I know, but it's like
I need
pistol.
I know there's a lot of things there, and it's not as much as I like Duncan on Russell Wilson just because he appears to be a bit of a clown. It's not exclusively a Broncos thing, because we saw meltdowns with Tom Brady this past weekend, right? We've seen Aaron Rodgers be like just pure garbage all season.
That's putting it nicely.
I don't know if there's a changing of the guard in the NFL where like these quarterbacks that used to be really good just aren't anymore. Even Matt Ryan was like the turnover king in the past like month of the season.
And
like,
he used to be never into turnovers. Matt Ryan wasn't a heavy turnover quarterback.
Right, like you can count on a couple of things in life, death, taxes, Leafs losing in the first round, Leafs losing against teams they shouldn't, players who used to play on the Maple Leafs coming back and scoring on them in their own barn, and that Matt Ryan was going to give the ball away 4 times. Like, it's not normal. And I don't think Russell Wilson is as bad as he's looked. But
I don't know,
man, like that Broncos offense looks like garbage.
One or two games, maybe he's not as bad as he looks, but man, can't complete a pass.
Yeah, I haven't admittedly watched it as much as I probably could or should have, or other people have. But like, one of Russ's strengths used to be scrambling. Like, he was a very mobile quarterback. I feel like in what I've seen of the Broncos, he hasn't been able to And I don't know, again, I don't know if this is the Broncos playbook or whatever, but I don't think he's been able to be as mobile maybe as he has been in the past. And maybe that's, I don't know if that's protection. Like, I don't know what it is, but it feels like they're trying a different offense and it's not for him.
Well, I mean, it is a different offense, right? Like
Yeah.
he spent his
Yeah.
entire career with the Seahawks, and now he's adjusting to a new system. So maybe that's part of it as well, right? Like he needs to start from scratch with a new team, a new offensive coordinator, a new head coach, a new offensive line, like new, right? So
But
it will take some time for him to warm up into this.
it's also very telling when after that half, it was 50 or I think like 70% of all plays called were runs
Right.
after the half.
But like when new quarterbacks and they're supposed to be elite quarterbacks come into a system, like you build the system around them, right? And it doesn't feel like the Broncos built the system around Russ. Like, and I get like, listen, there's a delta between Tom Brady and Russell Wilson, but Tom Brady walked into Tampa, albeit with some familiar weapons, and was basically able to assimilate himself into that. I just feel like they didn't, and Russell's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I feel like they didn't. I feel like he came in and they were like, "This is the way the Broncos do it," as opposed to being like, "Hey Russ, let's play to your strengths. Like, we're gonna craft an offense for you." And I don't know. Like, I feel like that's a coaching error.
Did you see the quote from Tom Brady that he said to his offensive line?
No.
I saw that he lost it, and I heard everyone talking about it. I mean, I should
Well,
have seen it.
Considering that the dude, like, what was it? He took Wednesday off. He was gone on Friday, and Saturday he didn't practice either. And then they were just like, "Yeah, I get you're 6-time winning quarterback and arguably the greatest player in NFL history, but at the same time, you don't rag your O line like that on live TV because you know the next game it's miss a block."
Yeah.
Just saying.
So according to Barstool, and you can kind of hear the full quote on the broadcast, but Barstool quoted it specifically. And the reason why you can barely hear it on the broadcast is because obviously the mics are not intentionally trying to pick up him cussing, and at the same time the commentary is talking over it, so there's a lot of words happening here. But supposedly the quote was, "I don't leave my wife and kids to be losing to Kenny fucking Pickett at half."
Yeesh.
Which is like obviously insulting to his offensive line, but also pretty insulting to Kenny Pickett. Like, what did he ever do to you? He's the rookie. Like, what do you want from me?
He's just going out there to play. Like, watch Kenny Pickett goes out and wins 3 Super Bowls and fucking like, and then what does Tom Brady have to say?
But it definitely is a changing of the guard, I think, in the NFL in terms of the quarterbacks. I think, you have Josh Allen who, could be MVP again. I mean, he threw, was it last week was the 40-0, right? Or whatever.
There's 43.
Destroyed again. They exercised a little bit of a demon this past week against the Chiefs.
It was an off game for Josh Allen this past week. He only had 329 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, just an off, little bit of a
pedestrian.
That's an off. Yeah, that's an off week for him.
Subpar performance. And then you have, of course, Zach Wilson, who just shows up and keeps winning games. So I think the guard is changing a bit.
I will say this though. Do you notice that all the quarterbacks though that we're all talking about are all dudes that have it hit like not performing when they've been consummate performers for their entire career, have all had personal shit go on in the past little bit.
Actually, that's a really good point. Like both Brady and Rodgers have been kind of embroiled in like personal, like Rodgers' personal stuff is just because he's weird. Like he just became weird one day. Like was he always weird, or did he just?
I mean, it very well always could have been weird.
Yeah,
Just woke up
like,
weird.
honestly, with like I know Jim, I'm pretty sure you watched it, and Dustin, I think you have because I think we've discussed it before. But he's what's his name? Fucking the crazy guy from Entourage.
Billy.
The actor. He was the actor and he's the art guy. Oh my god, he was in Drop Zone, the movie with Wesley Snipes, and oh my god, And
All
that's
I can
who I
remember-
picture Aaron Rodgers turned out to be.
All I remember is Billy
I
from.
actually never watched Entourage, so I can't help you there.
Oh, really? Okay. Gary Busey. Aaron Rodgers is
Yeah, I know who Gary Busey is.
yeah. Aaron Rodgers is the Gary Busey of the NFL. Where he's like, I see the play down the field, but then I look over here and I see a man, and I let him feel me for a minute, but then I come back here. Like, he's just fucked.
I kind of imagine Aaron Rodgers being like a cosplay Keanu Reeves.
Keanu Reeves cosplays
from-
Aaron Rodgers cosplaying as Keanu
From
Reeves.
Bill and Ted.
Like Keanu Reeves is like, I think he's out there and he's a strange dude, but at the same time, he's cool.
Yeah.
And he seems like a dude you'd want to hang around. He's kind of like the reciprocal of Keanu Reeves. Like he has like almost similarities, but just different enough to be the opposite.
To be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to hang out with you. Stay away from me. And you
Right, and
smell.
not a cool dude.
Yeah, like every time he opens his mouth, I'm like, and he's not even saying like, he's not always saying wild shit. He's not like flying off the handle. He's got the very like, I think it's because he's so matter of fact and calm. Like it's not even like when a politician says something stupid and you're just like, oh my god, shut the fuck up. This guy just talks like a normal dude, gives a real chill normal interview, but what he says, you're just like, oh my god, like.
And I
what is
wonder,
wrong with you?
And maybe this will also make sense based on the examples we have with Russell Wilson and Tom Brady. That winning masks a lot of weird behavior. So when
Yeah,
when
just
Aaron
laugh.
Rodgers was MVP, Tom Brady's winning those Super Bowls, and Russell Wilson he won a Super Bowl, but he's still always
Competitive.
The Seahawks are always contenders in their division. They'd always be at the top of that division.
They rumored that like there was talk that Russ could be the MVP this year because they thought he was going into the situation that was good for him and he would elevate his game and there would be this comeback for Russ. So yeah, like he was always considered this competitive kind of winner, right? So I think you're right. I think you win and people kind of overlook your fucked up shit.
Well, I mean, a great example of that is the Cleveland Browns, where people in the stands are holding up signs for like free Deshaun Watson,
Right.
and like they don't care what he's done in his personal life. They just want their starting quarterback, right?
But, he hasn't even, but that's the thing is Deshaun Watson hasn't even really won anything.
No, but I think the expectation in Cleveland is that he's going to help that team. Whether he does or he doesn't remains to be seen. Yeah, I agree with you, but I think they expect him to be really good. I think we need to talk about it just because James referenced it so many goddamn times. The New York Jets beat the Green Bay Packers by a score of 27-10. I still am very hot about the Jets because Garrett Wilson is an asshole. And he can't produce fantasy points, so I am annoyed with the New York Jets. I did, however, pick up the New York Jets defense this week, and boy, did that pay off.
Yeah.
I had like 20-some points for the Jets defense, so I am going to keep rolling that Jets defense out there until they prove me wrong.
And there's a good reason you should, because number one, Quinnen Williams is a beast, okay? Quinnen Williams is a beast. And when the Jets... So I mean, I've been made fun of for a long time about being a Jets fan, and like, so be it, right? They've been fucking garbage. But the one thing I've always kind of said, at least, is that, you know, I say always, dating back to last year. When they traded Jamal Adams, I was kind of bummed because Jamal Adams, when he was drafted, I thought, you know, finally they get the best player in the draft. This is going to be incredible. They stink. Jamal wants out. They trade Jamal to the Seahawks for a bunch of first rounders, right? And the Seahawks end up sucking. So the Jets have their first round pick. The year previous, they take Zach Wilson, right? Then the Jets have they have out of the top 40 picks, they had 4. They had 10% of the top 40 picks in this year's draft. And they draft Sauce Gardner, Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and was it Jermaine Johnson, who's another in the secondary who was highly touted but had a knee injury. You cannot sit there and tell me that as of right now, Sauce Gardner is not in the elite of backfields in this league. He might be the best. I haven't looked at the stats, but stats-wise, he might be the best defender for wideouts in this league. He does things that should be able to do. And it's fucking incredible to watch. And not to mention, the guy has a nutsack on him when he wore the cheese head out of the field. And he was pandering to the Green Bay crowd with the cheese head on him. And Adam Lazard knocked it off his head. And then, or whatever his name is. And then look at Breece Hall. He was the best running back in the draft, and he's proving it week. I picked him up in fantasy. He's consistently getting me 20 points, at least in fantasy, over the last 3 weeks, because that guy is a machine. And they've surrounded Zach Wilson with weapons, like we talked about at the beginning of the season. And it's paying off, and the defense is showing. Dude, we chatted about this on Messenger. The Jets have to play the Seahawks, the Bears, the Lions. They have to play the Dolphins again, I think twice. They got to play the Pats twice, and they got to play the Bills twice. There's a real chance, like, that they could only, like, and again, I'm not being a homer here. They'll lose to the Bills, but they could win the other games, and the Jets could finish like with 12 wins. It's possible. And wouldn't that be nuts?
As we're now in week 6 of the NFL, I decided to pull up our NFL Super Bowl prediction spreadsheet that I made when we discussed it on the September 6th episode, right before the season. So far, if you're looking at the NFC, we're in pretty good shape.
Oh, yeah?
All of us said the Eagles would be winning the NFC East division, and I mean, the Eagles are 6-0. All of us said the Vikings would win the NFC North, and the Vikings are currently handily in charge of the NFC North with a 5-1 record. We all said Tampa Bay would win the South, and they are tied for first in the South with the Falcons at 3-3. And this is where we started to deviate, and I am 100% going to be wrong. There's a 0% chance the Arizona Cardinals are going to end up winning that division because they are almost as bad as the Broncos, if not worse.
Yep, and the new Call of Duty's coming out, so...
Exactly. And then once the new Call of Duty comes out, that's a write-off for that season. But both of you guys, actually, no, that's incorrect. James said 49ers, and they are 3-3. But Maddie said the Rams, who are also 3-3. So you're both technically right. Going into the AFC, we all said the Bills, and of course the Bills are 5-1, and they will win that division. We all said the Bengals for the North, and the Bengals are tied for the Ravens somehow. That doesn't make any sense.
Will the Ravens win another game? I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I mean, I think the Ravens will definitely be leading in a game in the fourth quarter again. And whether or not they're able to hold that lead in the fourth quarter remains to be seen. For the AFC South, both Maddie and I are right so far. We both said the Titans would win this division. James, you said the Colts, and I mean, they're all right there in the hunt, so that may or may not change. And then in the West, I said the Raiders, Maddie said the Chargers, James said the Broncos, and
my Broncos pick is just as bad as his Raiders pick. Don't fucking look at me.
Oh, actually, the Broncos pick is better than my Raiders pick. The Raiders won one game so far this year. I find it hilarious that none of us picked the Chiefs. I guess we really were wondering what that.
We're trying to galaxy brain that division. That's why.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? Jim picked the Broncos. You know why?
That's right.
You sounded like him. The thing is, I want to harken back to what we talked about in our NFL preview show a little bit about how we all sat here and swooned over the Eagles. And I think at a lot of time people were skeptical about the Eagles, but I just want to say these three gentlemen on this podcast swooned over the Eagles offense and said they might be one of the best teams in the NFL, and look where they are today. I just want to point that out.
None of us picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl.
They're not there yet.
Our picks were the Bills, the Rams, and the Vikings, all of which look like fine picks right now. The Vikings are 5-1, Bills are 5-1, and the Rams are like 3-3 or something. So like, Rams have a way to go, but I still think that's a good pick, and we will see how that goes as the season goes on. However, we are approaching week 7, and we do have picks to make for week 7, because if you were smart enough to make a 3-game parlay with all the picks that we made for you last week, you would not have won because James let you down.
What?
My pick was the Rams over the Panthers, which paid. Maddie's pick was the Eagles over the Cowboys, which paid. And James's pick was the Bucks over the Steelers. And you know what? Kenny fucking Pickett just ruined Tom Brady's afternoon and ruined your afternoon as well for making a parlay and trusting
Dude,
James.
Remember
So the
when
score.
I picked, no. Remember when I picked the Steelers over the Pats, and the Pats are fucking garbage, and then the Pats ended up demolishing the Steelers, and I'm like, okay, there's no way that the Steelers can fucking beat anybody then. So let's choose Tom Brady. And what? Fucking Tom Shaw, or just Tom Bunchin, or whatever his name is, lets me down.
You know what? Before we get into the scoring, I gotta say this, and I had this thought. That might have been Brady's retirement game.
I mean, Brady has what, a 9-figure contract waiting for him for a television deal once he's done playing football,
And flexibility of lifestyle that he
And a
doesn't have
family
practice,
to save.
right.
Well,
But I'm
does he
saying,
have a family to go back to at this point, right?
I think that's the game where he's on the phone after, and he's like calling. He's like, Giselle, baby, I'm
He's
so sorry.
he's
Just
Happy
like
Gilmore.
these last 7 weeks.
He's Happy Gilmore to be happy. Baby, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it.
I'm trying to provide for you. What are you doing to me? I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. But
My girlfriend's dead. She fell off a cliff and died on impact.
But I think that's his retirement game. Before we just kind of get into that, I think that's the game where it finally for him, he's like, he calls her and he's like, you know what? You're right. Just let me finish off this season and I'm done. And I'll sign anything you want me to sign that binds me to it. Whatever, I'm done. And I think that's the game that did it.
Home,
Yeah.
coming home.
For 4 days a week, and
Tell
then
the
the other
world
3 days
that-
he's going to be doing games.
Tell the
Coming
kids.
home.
Tell the kids.
How fat do you think Brady gets after his career? Because that dude's
Massive.
been dialed in.
That dude gets massive. That dude just lives on a diet of pizza rolls and beer for sure. After
Yeah.
like
He gets so fat. And then I guarantee you, just because it's Tom Brady, Under Armour is going to introduce a retirement line where it's just extra relaxed and stretchy.
or he shows up the season after completely chiseled, but like 100% a Ken doll. Like no, like the most
Oh, just
plastic of plastic
invested.
surgeries. Looks
Yeah.
like Michael Jackson. Just comes out full plastic surgery.
He's going to be like Homer Simpson, that episode where they have like the shit stapled behind him, so you just can't see the excess
Yeah.
fat.
That's it.
Anyway, sorry, Dustin. The scores.
So our picks for this week 7, as quickly as approaching, and I am taking this pick mainly to mess with James because I know he was going to make this pick as well. But we've discussed at length in this program how bad the Broncos are, and unfortunately, we've discussed at length
how decent,
how good the Jets think, James thinks they are.
Can we settle on decent? Can we just settle on decent for now? I feel like that's a fair assessment.
And
At this point,
I'm a fan, but they're fine. Like they're a 15 out of 30 team or whatever.
It's better than being 29 as they have been.
I don't know. Seems like it's bothering Dustin.
it bothers me just because I don't think they're this good, but James is so impressed with their mediocrity. And
like I said, he's all about extremes. He's extreme happy with a team that doesn't deserve to be that good. He's extremely down on a team that deserves that much hate. So
yeah, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And nevertheless,
I
would
like watching
at this
hard
point,
workers.
I would take
The Jets work hard.
At this point, I would take a college team over the Broncos, but in this case, I get to choose a team with a winning NFL record. So I'm going to take the New York Jets over the Broncos for my pick in Week 7.
Which would
James.
push the Jets to 5-2, by the way, which would be an unreal record for that team at this point in the season. Another team, again, you know what? If you're going to take the New York Jets, I'm going to go to another team that is just having an unreal season and I don't think anybody saw coming, and that's the New York Giants. And you know what? It's not even Danny Dimes being Danny Dimes. I think they've just had a really good run from like the rest of the team. It's almost like I feel like the rest of the team is performing really well around Danny. So I'm taking the Giants over the Jaguars. I think the Jaguars were pretenders 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think they showed up and they impressed a lot of people, but they've since, that's a team full of there's a lot of rookies. And you could say the same about the Jets. The Jets do have some veteran leadership on that team, and I think the Jaguars would benefit from the same way the Bills went out and got Von Miller. Like you talk to a lot of people about the Bills and how their attitudes changed. Again, ironically, the same thing I'm looking for across other sports teams and other sports. Von Miller's a guy that is a difference maker, and he comes in and he's making a difference for the Bills. I think the Jags could benefit, but they don't have that right now, so I'm taking the Giants.
Okay. So, yes, the Giants are 5-1. Fine. I think any team that gets to 5-1 deserves a little bit of respect. I still think they are a fraudulent team. I think they're frauds. I don't think they're legit 5-1. Again, frauds. I am going with the Jags over the Giants. One, to fuck with Jim. And two, I do think the Jags are legitimately better than they were last year. And I do think they're legitimately better than what their record shows this year. Let's not forget, Evan Ingram guaranteed a Jaguars win over the Giants. Guaranteed. And the current spread.
They better die on the field.
The Jags are 2.5-point favorites.
That's easy money if you're a betting person, I think. I think I take the Giants all day.
So the issue we're running into is that if we're trying to make a 3-game parlay here, you're not going to be able to make a parlay with the Jags over the Giants and then the Giants over the Jags. So as a bonus pick, writing into the show is one Anthony DiFrancesca, who said,
before you get into this, did an absolutely masterful job on your hair, sir. Like
I don't know if you're being sarcastic or not.
No, I'm genuinely like serious. Like when it comes to hair, I take it very seriously. I'll tell you when you got butchered and look like shit. And it's silky. I like it.
Well, thank you very much. And if you want to see what Maddie's talking about, make sure you go to YouTube and check out the episode that I assume will be uploaded this week, James.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we can figure out the tech issues with exporting, but we'll figure it out.
Yeah, we've had technical issues uploading to YouTube the past couple of weeks. So if you are a regular YouTube listener, we apologize, and we hope we can get this episode up for your viewing pleasure, and you can see what Maddie is talking about specifically. But Anthony DiFrancesca wrote into the show, and he said, my NFL pick this week is the Bucs beating whoever they play. He said, I saw Brady yelling at someone on Instagram, and it looked like my parents and the way they used to yell at me. So he thinks that Brady is going to get that team fired up, and in this case, the Bucs are playing the Panthers. So actually not a horrible pick. So we will add that one in there if you feel you need to complete your 3-game parlay. Interestingly enough, I've only ever spoken 2 of Anthony's picks on this show, and both of them were the Bucs. So he's already missing the concept of what we're doing here. But nevertheless, he's not official. He's not having an official list like we have. So if you're unaware and haven't been along for the journey with us every week thus far, we are picking a team to win every week, but we're doing it like a suicide pool where I can't, or whoever makes the pick, you can't pick that team again the next week. So I've already picked the Bengals and the Bills and the Chargers, the Packers, and the Rams. So I'm unable to pick those teams going forward. So that's why I picked the Jets over the Broncos this week. Cool. All right.
What are the scores, by the way? Sorry, the standings.
Oh, yeah, it's a good point. So the score right now, Maddie, you're at 4.
Nice.
James and I are stuck on 2. So
Okay.
you have a big lead right now, and you can really make a strong stance if the Jags win this week.
So in saying this, at what point do we stop doing this? We can just, because it seems like anytime we do this, I just win.
Well, there definitely will come a time in the schedule if you continue winning and we continue losing that it will be no longer valid. So I can figure that out mathematically later, but you're going to have to continue to win in order for that conversation to come up.
Well, if we only had one thing to pick and it was the Leafs in the first round, we would win, and then we wouldn't have to stop doing it because this man would pick them and we wouldn't, and we'd finally be ahead.
Because that would be the year they win and you fucking get pissed off.
Yeah. See, the key is to bet against the Leafs, because then if you win, you make money.
Happy.
If you lose, it only costs you $20 for a Leaf win.
Something I would not have bet on actually happened this week, though, and that was the entire board of directors of Hockey Canada stepping down, which, I mean, finally, about time. It only took like almost every sponsor to pull out of Hockey Canada to make it happen. What's interesting is that, and I don't have the specific article or tweet that said this, but supposedly I should say all, a portion of the sponsors who paused their pledge, we'll say, because there's some companies like Canadian Tire that said, fuck it, we're out entirely. Some of them paused it and said, we will, maybe support once some changes are made. Some of them are now like reconsidering that and saying, maybe we just stop altogether, because they look at Hockey Canada as a completely tarnished brand. Like, even though these changes has happened, I don't know if it's worth our money to be associated with this anymore, regardless of the changes that have happened. So that is how badly bungled Hockey Canada has become.
But that's what we said kind of, I think, for the last couple of weeks is like they just got to burn it. Like they start over, new logo, new everything, new fresh faces, all of it. Maybe it's not even called Hockey Canada. Maybe it's called the Canadian Hockey Federation or something, or the Canadian Hockey Organization, or Organisation de Hockey de Canada. Like I don't know. It doesn't matter. I think I agree with the sponsors. I mean, if you look at it from a business side, this is tough. Like, and you look at it when we're talking about WWE as a parallel, right? In payments for cover-ups of sexual scandals. Like, I don't know that there's a right way to do this, but from a business standpoint, the WWE kind of did it the right way. They fucking investigated it, found that, yeah, no, it was pretty fucking garbage. The guy who owned the company and was the chairman of the board stepped down, and that was the end of it. You didn't hear from that guy again. Like, and that guy had been there for a fucking 100 years. And they figured out how to do this and survive. And Hockey Canada's sitting here on government, like, testimony being like, I don't think the lights will stay on. I don't know how we're going to have kids in rinks. Like, are you kidding me? Like, no wonder the sponsors don't want to come back. These fucking morons, like, it's, I wouldn't. And I really think they just have to start, like, they have to start anew, because it's not going to work under the old kind of, there's too much, what's the word I'm looking for? There's too much bad juju surrounding it.
I agree. I feel like Maddie wants to say something, but all of a sudden he's like lost all his technical abilities.
No, it's something randomly. It's like a random update just popped up on my computer, and it made everything white, and it pissed me off. It ruined my ring light. So I do think obviously they have a right, or not necessarily a right, but they're well within reasonability to do that. I do feel upset for kids and people beyond kids, whether it's people that have jobs or whatever, that are going to suffer from this, because you have essentially an entire organization paying for the mistakes of, a bunch of people at the top. So it's absolute garbage for that. And I just hope that whatever comes in terms of a board, if they can't salvage it, that, at least something happens to ensure that, like I said, is, the people that don't deserve to be harmed by shit like this aren't. Do you know what I mean? Like,
And maybe that's what her name meant by keeping the lights on, right? Like, maybe that's what, maybe we took her comment out of context a little bit, but there probably might be a slight, hopefully only a slight disruption to programs. Like, I hope there's no, but if they're just having another board, like they have an interim board until a new board is elected, I can't see there being any sort of, like Maddie said, there's still a staff and a company that'll run shit. So I think it's just a matter of, like, making sure these guys, don't, like, they elect proper leadership and maybe change the name and change the look, so that people don't have this immediate association with all the garbage they've seen. I honestly think, like, it sounds stupid, but I honestly think just changing the name and changing the logo along with the new leadership would go a long way. Like, I think that would be a game changer for potential, to bring sponsors back. Like, I think that's really all you might need to do beyond the change in leadership.
I think the whole, don't get me wrong, I think there's a lot of bad blood there on terms of sponsors too. And let's not kid ourselves here. that some of these sponsors that are doing this, their closets ain't clean either completely. Like, let's be real. It's just they haven't been found yet. So I guarantee you, whatever, but that's neither here nor there. I just think that I think they're just waiting to see the people that are elected. You know, and by saying, you know what, we said we're going to put it on pause, but we're probably just going to pull out. I think that's to put pressure to make sure that the right people are in there. And we all know too that, um, you know, business is a game to a lot of them. It's all politicking. It's all, where can you gain an advantage or get that upper hand over other people or other organizations. I don't know. I try to look at this as like big picture and understand, yes, there's victims in this, and that should be primarily number one concern. But after that, looking at it, I'm like, who's to say? And maybe I just watch way too much Game of Thrones and shit like that. But who's to say that these organizations aren't pulling this shit to get people they want in there to fuel or further their agenda in terms of understanding how much pull and sway and influence Hockey Canada, and I don't mean the organization, I mean the sport as a whole has, and whatever body is representing that or the figurehead of that, to not, you know, improve their business standing, to say, well, we want this person in here, and it's not necessarily the right person for the job, but it's the right person for them.
I think as sponsors, that's kind of what they're there. They put up their money so that their business is represented and put forth by a popular organization. It's to show this kind of relationship and affinity between two concepts, right? So I think that is a little Game of Thronesy, but I see where you're coming from. But I think, I honestly think it's more like we don't want any more damage to our brands through this. Like, we don't, like, and I gotta believe there's a level of altruism in that. Listen, you said the victims are most important. I think also what's most important is that there's no more victims, and they have a way of, what was that? It was like a gong.
Smacked my arm off my boot.
Yeah.
There's no more, and they have proper checks and balances in place to ensure that. And maybe that's, like you said, maybe they're just waiting it out to make sure it's the right people. Because if it's just the same old 60-year-old white dude J-Brone, like, I don't think it's going to work. I think you have to have somebody in there who understand, like, apparently the call is for people who understand crisis management and things like that, which I think is integral. I think we need someone who understands the proper steps to take when something like this arises, because changing leadership isn't going to stop this from happening per se, but what it's going to stop from happening is covering it up, and it's going to create accountability throughout the system so that, there's a very clear message that it's unacceptable and it won't be supported, let alone covered up. And I think that's what we need to hope for and understand. Like, because again, what happened to the victims is not a hockey thing. It's not a Hockey Canada thing specifically. That's a culture thing. Hockey plays a part in it, but I think society plays an even bigger part in it. It's how it was dealt with and how it was basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not aided, but what's the word? Anyone? Bueller?
No, I can hear you shaking your leg.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird.
I just hear the ding, 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 ding.
I had no idea what that sound was. That's amazing that you called that.
I think just knowing how they assisted in kind of allowing it and hushing it, like, that can't happen, right? So we'll see.
I just think easiest thing to do, and obviously it's an easy thing to say, it's a harder thing to implement, is zero tolerance right off the bat. The first thing you mandate coming in is zero tolerance at any level.
Yeah. I mean, that's such an easy,
that it's not like obviously I feel like due diligence and investigation should take place, but the instant someone does that, it's not like you're suspended for this, you're gone.
And I think that's what bothers me about the whole, like, Logan Mailloux shit and, like, other things is, like, people will say, oh, they made a mistake. Like, a mistake is not an error in judgment. Like, a mistake is when you don't know better, or like there's a happenstance where, oh, like I dropped something. Like, that's a mistake. I mean, a lot of these things, an error in judgment is not, like, these are premeditated acts. Like, I don't find those mistakes. I don't find what happened to the girl in London a mistake. I don't find filming a passed out woman on the East Coast a mistake. I don't find what Logan Mayu did a mistake. They know what they're doing. And especially if you're old enough to drive a fucking car. Like, if you're old enough to drive a car and you're going to say those are mistakes, fuck, get off the fucking road. Because basically, you know, if you're not even good enough to handle human-to-human interaction, how are you going to handle being behind a vehicle that goes 100 miles an hour? So, yeah, I agree with you. Zero tolerance. Like, I don't, like, there should be no, well, they deserve a second chance. At what? Being an asshole? All right? Like, so.
All right. Now it's time for the wrestling corner. And just a quick story, not even a story. An observation that I had, because AEW was in Toronto this past week. And there was about, it was a full house at the Coca-Cola Coliseum. There was 7,000 people or so to watch AEW Dynamite episode. And what always amazes me, as someone who's been in Canadian professional wrestling for the past, I don't know, 11, 12 years almost now. It always amazes me when I walk around a big arena for a wrestling event and seeing so many people I've never seen before in my life. Like, I'm not expecting them to recognize me. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there are so many fans that I'm like, if you're a fan of wrestling, how have I never seen you in my life? You know what I mean? Like, I have never seen you at a Smash Wrestling event. I've never seen you at a Greektown Wrestling event. I've never seen you at a Destiny event. I've never seen you at a Barrie Wrestling event. I've never seen you at a Hammerlock Wrestling event or whatever. Name your Ontario independent here.
This dude's dropping.
Never seen them anywhere. So not only that, but then, like, when the show starts and they were doing the AEW Dark Elevation taping, and they're like, okay, on commentary is Ian Riccaboni and Paul White and Daddy Magic, and 7,000 people start chanting for Daddy Magic. And I'm just like, if Daddy Magic was booked on an independent card like a year ago, there would be 50 people that showed up.
Yeah.
You know, and like,
we have this
crazy.
all the time.
It's just crazy what like national television exposure does, because now all of a sudden people love this guy and like, oh, he's Canadian, so we love him even more. But if that guy was on an independent show before he got television experience or television exposure, I should say, no one would care.
I wouldn't.
Not necessarily no one, but you get my point. Like, no one in terms of like in comparison to the crowds you get at independent shows.
I would argue that it's not so much national television as it is there's a gateway to legitimacy, right? And what I mean by that is we used to go to Ring of Honor shows that had thousands of people with
Section
guys
C?
that we book. Sorry,
Section C.
Section C. With guys that we booked on the regular were on some of these shows, and you hear people cheering for those guys, and you hear around while you're flying or whatever, yo, I came to see this guy, and they get a flyer with the guy's fucking face on it, and they're like, yeah, maybe I'll check it out. The fuck do you mean? What is it we're missing from this show? Like, is it that guy plus Matt Taven that made you go? What is it that you're missing? Because I can guarantee you there are going to be guys on the show that are probably better than the guys you're trying to pair up against to find value or whatever. Dude, we had the fucking Watson Evil in New Japan. The man was now a leader in Bullet Club. Was a champion there. He was a fucking IWGP
Takaaki
champion.
Watanabe.
Yeah. So
who's now going by Evil in New Japan.
It's New Japan's not on national TV and Ring of Honor's not on national TV, but people will go for that shit because there's a gateway of legitimacy where, oh, because it's Ring of Honor, oh, because it's New Japan. It's very odd, and it's something we always used to struggle with. So to see, the same thing. Like you hear people lose their minds for Butcher, Blade, and the Bunny. Well, they worked with us for fucking 3 years.
That was another huge one as well. Like the response that Butcher, Blade, and Bunny got, and rightfully so. And I love all three of them.
They're fantastic
Like
people.
as wrestlers and people, I love every single one of them. But
where were you when?
Right, like they were regulars at Smash Wrestling. Like there are some people like Daddy Magic, for example, that would have only popped up at 1 or 2 Smash Wrestling events in the history of the 10-year life cycle of Smash Wrestling. But like Pepper and Andy and Ali were at every single. Well, maybe not Andy at everyone, but like Pepper and Ali were at every single Smash Wrestling event.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's an odd. Like we had Orange Cassidy. I'd actually quit by then.
A number of times.
But yeah, I quit by then. But if you had him today, it would be different. And I don't know if that's national TV or just that gateway to legitimacy. But I don't know. Yeah, it's always a fucking weird thing. And I think maybe it's a show at a gym or a show at the Phoenix. It's not at Coca-Cola. It's not. But then again, like fucking Ted Reeve. Like, I get it's, like, legendary. It's also a dive. Like, you know, like, it's... I would argue the Phoenix is a better venue than Ted Reeve. So, I don't know. It's something to do with the connotation that people have with independent wrestling being less legitimate or not as good as for whatever reason. You know? And I would argue that
there's some sort of stigma that keeps people away, and someone's going to figure it out. And when that person figures it out, they will be making a ton of money. And, you know, and part of the reason why I bring this up is because, and I know people don't like listening to him, but Jim Cornette had a great podcast this week. And I've only heard a part of it. But the reason why he was talking about Canadian wrestling was a couple things. One, because AEW is in town. And also, there's a new book written by Vance Nevada called Uncontrolled Chaos, Canada's Remarkable Professional Wrestling Legacy. And for the first, 30 minutes of the show, he's talking about this book and the history of Canadian professional wrestling and some of the biggest gates that ever happened in Canada. And of the top 20 biggest gates in Canadian wrestling history is all Toronto and Montreal, which is kind of funny. And it was cool to hear people talk about the history of wrestling in this country and who the big stars used to be, and in the 50s what the draws used to be in Montreal, and how there's 20,000 people going to these shows in the 1950s, right? And it wasn't until I want to say it was the 1980s. I guess by the time Vince ran the big event at the X at the old exhibition stadium with Hogan and Orndorff, since that moment everything else died in terms of professional wrestling in Canada. But I mean, I guess it's the same way as everywhere else in the world. Vince killed all the territories, right? So I think since then, since the mid 80s, Toronto has been a major league wrestling town. So and it's in a lot of ways the same that you would see
I ask what the delta is then between Ring of Honor and Smash at the time, because I would argue that the delta was very tight. The production
I'm gonna
wasn't.
Keep account for how many times you say Delta in an episode.
The difference between a Ring of Honor show and Smash shows at the time weren't the production for a Ring of Honor wasn't very high.
No, but what I'm saying is the Ring of Honor is perceived as a major promotion
based on
whether or not the production matched or not.
Based on what is what I'm asking. What made that difference? Is it the stars that they produced that went on to bigger?
No, I don't think it had anything to do with the talent roster. I think it had everything to do with the fact that when people looked at North American wrestling, they thought at that time WWE was number one, and there was a dogfight for number two between Ring of Honor and TNA. So I think in the perception of wrestling fans was this is the next best major league promotion, and I compare it to hockey too, because we've seen. You go to Toronto Marlies game and there's no one there. And how many junior hockey teams have come up and failed in the greater Toronto area? The Toronto Roadrunners were around for a little while. And I know that was an American League affiliate and they ended up getting moved out east. But what about the St. Michael's Majors? What happened to the
Brampton?
The Brampton Battalion? What happened to the Brampton Beast? Like there's so many. The Toronto GTA has, to me, it always appeared to be, and even the Raptors 905,
It's
right? Like
snobbish culture.
it seems to be a very major league city. So if something is not perceived to be the best of the best, it doesn't get the support that if you go 2 hours to London, Ontario, you see 7,000 people for a Knights game, right? And it's the same with the CFL, where
Yeah.
CFL football isn't perceived as a premier football league, at least in the city of Toronto. If you go out to Hamilton, they're selling out Tim Hortons Field. You go out to Saskatchewan,
yeah.
like that, they live and breathe Rough Riders football.
So it's, you know what it is? It's spoiled. You're saying basically what you're saying is the GTA is spoiled, and I would totally agree with that. I think the people in the
I
city
don't know if spoiled is the right answer, but I think if you compare it to New York City or Chicago, Illinois, like of these major metropolitan cities, I think that might be par for the course. I think they're all like that. They're just major league cities.
I don't know if spoiled would be necessarily the correct term. I like that kind of implies like an undeserving or kind of ungrateful, and I don't necessarily think it's ungrateful. I just think, with the availability of entertainment in this city in comparison to something like Saskatchewan or Winnipeg or for that matter, and again, people are going to shit on this, but in places like Alberta, that it's just when it's you have your money and you choose to spend it, you're at realistically like instead of going to 5 Marlies games a year, you're gonna go to the one Leaf game a year, spend the money to watch Austin Matthews. You're gonna go to a Raptors game to see, Fred VanVleet or Scotty Barnes and whoever's in town from whatever team. I think it's just where you feel like you want to get the most for your money in terms of that respect. And I also think too that if you were to put a major league team, whether it's hockey or basketball or baseball, and I don't mean a farm team, I mean like a legitimate Big Four sport team in somewhere like Brampton or London, I guarantee you see the attendance fall for the Knights. You will see the attendance fall for whatever, because people will say, well, if I have the choice to spend my money on top tier product and the availability to do it, they will and make the sacrifice to the lower end version. So
yeah. I think I agree with that. I think the issue when it comes back to wrestling is that these things weren't here, right? Like these things don't come around that often. Like they're not here for 41 games a year.
WWE does though, right?
Once a year, maybe twice.
Maybe about twice, yeah.
Yeah, right. So,
but also, but again, like to Maddie's point, like it depends on where your money is allocated, right? And like what your other competition for your dollar is. But alas, just an interesting observation that I saw at the AEW show this past week and thought it was worth talking about. But what definitely is worth talking about is everyone's favorite segment of the week. That's right. It's everyone's favorite segment of the week because we get to hear Maven's entrance music. And yes, that is also right. Maddie did hit his mic arm again. My shout out this week goes to one man by the name of, who has one name. He probably has a last name, but I don't know what it is. And every time he posts a video on YouTube, I greatly enjoy it. And this past week, he made a new intro to the videos, which I greatly enjoyed because it was a spoof on UFC's STEM old entrance video music. STEM Face the Pain, I think was the name of the track. Anyways, the gentleman's name is Matthew, and Matthew is the creator and curator of Botchamania, which is one of my favorite shows to watch on YouTube. So shout out to Matthew for always doing a great job, and I greatly appreciate the content you produce.
Maddie, go. We got like a minute and a half, and I think we could do this.
Okay. Henry Cavill, because he's back as Superman. My Superman is fucking back, and that's all I give a shit about because he is the one true Superman that we have right now. Get fucked. Also, the Creed 3 trailer came out today, and boy, am I hyped.
Mine's easy as fuck. It is Sauce Gardner for putting the cheese on his head as a ballsy move for a rookie to do in Lambeau after a win in Lambeau against Aaron Rodgers. Puts the cheese on his head and gets the fuck out with a win.
Not the MILF Hunter.
And that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the fuck out. So thank you so much for joining us for this week's episode 27 of 43.6. Thank you again to our sponsor, Now Your Treasures. And thank you for subscribing to the program. We will see you next week for episode 28 of 43.6, the sports podcast. You as wanted.